Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Wednesday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Ellen, hard at work on the tropical island of St. Bart's, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Drew, coming to you from Salt Lake City, Utah, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is David, coming to you from the lush and beautiful semi-Pacific tropical Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers
and Sister.
That's right, Ellen. Welcome, everyone, to episode 479. And today we have a very special show because we have a guest co-host and a long-time fan of this show. I think he's listened to every single episode since episode 1, which shows you what sort of interesting life this guy probably has. Drew Bielinski! All fans of Light Talk, you all know who Drew is. Drew, how you doing?
Good, how are you guys?
Fine. Where are you calling from today, Drew?
I'm from Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City. Yeah. One of my favorite places. I love Salt Lake City. Probably one of the most beautiful spots in this country, by the way.
It is, yeah. I never tire of looking at mountains when I go to work.
Right. But not exactly tropical weather.
No.
Is it snowing there today?
Nope. It is actually a nice 85 degrees and sunny right now.
Oh,
wow, that's nice.
Very nice. Okay, before we get started, Ellen, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about Drew?
Okay. Drew Bielinski is a lighting designer, technical director, and lifelong fan of Light Talk since episode number 1. He currently lives in Salt Lake City, Utah, but he began his lighting journey in 2008 as a lighting board operator for Riverside Theater in Iowa City, Iowa. While he has always been in love with lighting since he was a kid, that one job gave him the spark to pursue a lifelong professional career in the field. Over the next 18 years, he has held numerous roles, including console operator and programmer, sound designer, composer, technical assistant, master electrician, lighting supervisor, and technical director. In the spring of 2016, he moved to Seattle, Washington, where he was the lighting supervisor for Teatro Zinzani and was a member of IA Local 15. He then moved to Salt Lake City in the fall of 2017, where he has done work for the University of Utah, the Grand Theater, Utah Opera, Salt Lake Community College, Salt Lake Acting Company, Center Point Theater, and live busking for several concerts and drag shows. He also occasionally travels back home to Iowa to design for City Circle Theater Company in Coralville. Since 2019, he has been the technical director for Abravanel Hall in downtown Salt Lake City. I think he is also a lifelong fan of LDI. Welcome to Light Talk.
Thank you very much. And yes, I am a lifelong fan of LDI. Started going in 2014, and I have not missed a year since.
Yeah,
it is an appointment traveling for me. Like, I will never miss a year.
Great.
So
great.
Awesome. Yeah. We see you every year there.
Yep.
And a little known fact also about Drew is that he is a member of the Luminoids.
That's right.
That's right. Drew laid down the piano track for our theme song. So, and it's
cool.
awesome.
I didn't know that.
Every time we hear the piano, and the piano is mixed pretty loud actually in the mix, Lori turns to me and says, God, I love the way you play the piano on this show. On this song.
Oh, that's very nice.
And every time you say, I didn't do it.
I didn't do it, honey. That's Drew. That's Drew's piano playing. I'm playing organ and mellotron, and that's it. But anyway, that's pretty damn funny.
So, Drew, how many blue balls, coffee cups, and stuffed animals do you have?
Well, I have 2 very rare, not meant for dishwasher mugs.
That's right.
I have one at my house here, and I have one at my desk at work that I drink out of every morning. And I have 3 shot glasses on my desk at work as well that hold like screws and little trinkets and stuff that I need every now and then. I have a blue ball. I have a couple Light Talk stickers. I basically any sweat. Oh, I had the stuffed monkey that I got from one of the
monkey
from one of the shows. Yep,
awesome,
those are great.
Yep,
yeah,
a crowd favorite.
So I have, and one of the shot glasses we have at home, my wife made a little. She put a little, what do you call it? A succulent plant in it. So it's on the windowsill with a tiny little
That's
plant
a
coming out of
small
it.
plant.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but it works.
A mini cactus.
Yeah, you need a cacti for that.
Oh yeah.
By the way, for listeners who haven't been to LDI and haven't seen our show in LDI, we give a lot of swag away for our shows, and we find the craziest stuff. One year we had fezzes. Some years, we've had blue balls. We've had Christmas ornaments. We've had everything. It's just totally nuts. So if you go and come see our show and you go to LDI, make sure you come, because you will guarantee that you'll end up bringing home something.
Oh yeah.
And last year we shamed Bobby Hale into giving away ETC swag, and that was the real stuff. That was good. People were like taking our stuff out of their backpacks and putting his stuff in.
Yeah.
That
They had bandanas.
ETC, they have the budget. We don't.
It was great.
I have the little tiny Yeti that they gave out.
Yeah, they were great.
I love that thing.
That's the Wisconsin shot
That's
glass.
right. That's right.
I have 5 of them. In other words, I spent a lot of time in the ETC lounge. It was nice there. It had great cookies, homemade cookies.
Absolutely.
I love ETC. They're fantastic. So listen, Drew is here as a guest host, which means that we're doing a regular show today. We're going to be answering your questions. But before we get started, I have a question for Drew.
Yeah.
Okay, because Drew has been listening to our show since number 1. Have you missed any? I need to know this.
No, so I remember, I think you were on episode like 25 when I started listening to it. So because somebody introduced me to it, and then so I downloaded all the backlogged episodes and just binge listened until getting to the current one. So yeah, I've listened since the beginning, since you got in trouble for the theme song at the beginning.
Yes, it was a Bruce Springsteen song we used.
Yes.
And my wife at
Clever.
the time was in the entertainment business, and she was in the legal end, and she goes, you shouldn't be using this song. But anyway, I have a question. Since you've listened to every episode, have you ever heard anything that was remotely useful?
Oh yeah.
All right. So in other words, just by chance, we've happened to give out some decent advice every now and then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, good. All right.
Oh yeah. I mean, you've been Light Talk, and in conjunction with LDI has been a lot of part of my education in my career.
That's pretty sad.
So I've learned a lot.
Now let's be honest about this. Have you ever been driving down the road and started yelling at the radio, going, "You guys, you idiots, you have it wrong"?
That's what Dennis does. That's what Dennis he did. He did it for years. He said, "I would yell at the radio." Remember? So then we made him a co-host, and now he can't yell at the radio anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
That's like watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and oh my God, it's D already. It's D.
Yep. Why are you phoning a friend? It's D.
Right. Call me. I know.
It's funny. All right, so let's get started. And since, Drew, you are our guest host, you have the first question of the day.
All right. Nicole from Madison writes, I really want to make lighting design and stage production my career, but the expenses of getting a college degree in theater are well beyond my current financial means. Is it possible to have success in this career without a formal education, or do I need to accept a future of never-ending student loan payments? Well, Nicole, I would say, so I'll tell you right now that I do have 2 degrees. I have an undergrad and a grad degree. Neither of them are in theater. I got my undergrad in computer science, and then my grad degree is in science education. And I actually started working in theater while I was working on that degree, and then theater kind of took off. And so I don't have any kind of formal classroom experience in theater as at an accredited university or anything like that. My journey basically was I just immersed myself in the theater. I took every gig and job I could. From that first job as a light board operator that I had in 2008, I made a relationship with the designer, picked their brain, asked them why they were doing certain things, like why did you choose this color, why did you put a light there, like how do you envision a design when you start. Started inhaling all of the knowledge that I was being given and exposed to, job after job after job. And then when I started going to LDI in 2014, I would look at my budget every year, and I would try to take at least a class at LDI or two. So, like I learned how to program the MA2 at LDI. I got laser certification at LDI. I learned augmented at LDI. I went to any seminars I could go to. So like the Master of Arts in Programming seminars were some of the best information and lectures I've ever heard regarding lighting. And then, I would just also read a lot of literature, like Brad Schiller's The Moving Light. What's it called?
The Art of Programming.
Yeah. Anne McBill's books, Stephen Shelley, of course. The Light and Sound America magazine I'd read every month, and I still do to this day. So I just put myself out there and read, listened, watched, and absorbed everything I could in the theater world, and gained the skills that I needed to work my way up to where I am now. So it is possible to have a successful career and job without going into a classroom. What do you guys think?
Well, I tend to agree. I think that someone who goes, to a few shows every year, USITT, LDI, maybe even Light Fair, just soak in as many conferences, meet as many people. A lot of people start out at a company like PRG or Four Wall, and even if they start out, coiling cable, they can eventually move up into a designer or technical director or shop director or tour director, whatever kind of job they're looking for. And there's also places now like Clifton Taylor and Mark Stanley have started the Studio School of Design, which has rather reasonably priced courses that you can take. I do think there are options, and I think for someone that doesn't want to be stuck with $200,000 worth of student loans, there are definitely pathways into the industry.
Yeah, I definitely think universities are not trade schools. You go to a university for a lot of reasons, but you don't go there to learn a craft, I don't think. I was on the 7-year plan when I was in college. I took 2 years off to go to the Barter Theater to be an intern. And generally the interns there were college graduates who were looking for some practical experience. But the thing that's missing in this country is the intern programs and the apprentice programs. When I was there, they had a summer apprentice program that was for high school students. And their intern program was for either the early graduates. The graduate MFAs had not, they just weren't that many at the time. It wasn't like every state's got 15 MFA programs now. So there were a dozen or so MFA programs at the time, and not everyone had access to those. So this was a way to learn the profession. I spent some time at Polikoff Studios learning how to paint. I think it's important to go out into the world and work in that world and learn from people who are doing it for a living. And there's great things you can learn at a university, but their primary goal is to make you, I think, a better human being, better well-read, understanding how to problem solve. But I don't think the university is the place to learn how to hang a light and tighten a C-clamp on a pipe. There's other places you can do that and bring that knowledge back with you.
Certainly not the only place that you could learn it. To answer the question, it all depends on what the student feels will be the best pathway. Drew was absolutely correct. You can do this without stepping foot in a theater class. And just listening to the dozens and dozens of guests that we've had on the show, and all of them are pretty accomplished professional designers, their journeys are all very different. You had some people who really did not go to formal theater schools, and you also had people that did, and that was how they got in, because a big part of the college life, especially when you're in the theater, is community, and you develop a community of fellow students and artists who are young artists who are growing and experimenting, as well as you're experimenting and discovering. I took that route. It was a more conventional route. I just found a group of people and a group of professors that I loved being with and I learned from, and we did a lot of shows. So you learn how to hang a light if you got to hang a light. And if you have a professor who knows, who's qualified, that professor can teach you how to hang the light. As a freshman, I had a man named John Haupt, who ended up being the head of Disney lighting for many, 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 many years.
He's a great guy, John.
I love John. He even hired me to go to Disney for about a year and a half. But that's a whole nother story. But John was terrific. And I met directors who taught me how to direct and how to talk to a director. I met composers, all that stuff. But that was my journey, and that was important for me. And I also, when I left SMU, I had a whole group of people who I could start to work with in the profession. So that works that way. But you don't have to do that. You can do it the other way too, because if you go to a production company, you're certainly going to learn a lot more about the technical elements of lighting, right, and new technology and whatever technology they may have. And you're going to be getting on-the-job training in professional situations. To me, schools that try to replicate the profession are making a big mistake, because it really is impossible to do that. Right? You're not under the same time pressure, nor should you be under the same time pressure, because they're teaching you how to design and they want you to make mistakes, and you need enough time to make those mistakes and correct them, because that's how you learn. All right. So they can't say, okay, you only have 6 hours to focus a show, or you only have 4 hours to cue the show. It's not part of the process of really good learning. But a combination, if you had a school that gives you a lot of time and a lot of freedom to explore and make mistakes, and then you had a professional internship program, as Steve was mentioning before, then all of a sudden you get the best of both worlds. And there aren't a lot of schools that do that. So for people who want to stay in school, just choose wisely. And the people who want to go say, I don't want to, I already know how to do most of the stuff. Then go and get into business, just get into business.
Well, I'm going back to some Ellen touched on earlier. Nicole says she wants to be a lighting designer. Don't expect to get gigs and immediately get behind a console. You'll have to take jobs like you said, coiling cable, pushing row boxes. And I would say it's beneficial for you to help the costume department, help out the set carpenters with, setting up a wall, or, get your foot in the door in all the disciplines of theater and learn all about what makes the show happen, not just the lighting. And that'll show people that you're really passionate about this. You want to know and, form a community and start relationships with a bunch of different technicians and different artists and different designers. And that will actually be more beneficial to you than if you just say, I'm doing lighting only.
All right. Ellen, you have the next question.
I do. James from Denver asks, how do you establish a healthy work-life balance as a freelance designer when you have to travel a lot to build your career? Well, I think that's a really interesting question. There's a fabulous dance lighting designer by the name of Robert Wurtzel. And I think he told me once that he was home an accumulated 3 months out of 1 year, if he added all the days together that he was home. And he has twins that I think they were 11 or 12 at the time. And I'm like, oh, do you remember what your kids look like? Teasing him about being on the road so much. But it really is hard. And I think especially during COVID, a lot of people realize there is life at home, and maybe it's a good idea to spend a little more time there. So when you're building your career, maybe you have to go more, but then as your career is more built, maybe you say no to one job and stay home over the course of the summer and keep your contacts going and keep networking so that the fall is really busy, but you've had a break and you spent some time with your family. I don't know, you guys who do this, what do you think?
Well, I think you choose your projects carefully, and you make decisions at some point about what you're willing to give up to do this work. When I was touring a lot, I can understand what he was saying. In my first tour, I was out 50 weeks out of 52. You've got to build in time for relaxation. You've got to build in time for health. You've got to build in time for eating a real meal as opposed to grabbing a hamburger and French fries backstage. I think people are always running around saying, I'm stressed. And I just don't buy that anymore. You're letting yourself be stressed. You're creating this trap that you can't get out of because you think nothing can be done unless you're there working on it. And I just think you have to learn how to manage your time. And the people you work with, they're trying to manage their time too. So I think sometimes we get so gung-ho about I'm going to design 3 shows every month. Maybe you're designing 2 shows that really kind of suck, and 1 show that looks really good because you're not giving your client or yourself the time to really do the work. It's just becoming repetition. I'll put the blue there, I throw the gobo here, put the fog machine there, and I'm off and running. So I think as an artist, you have to give yourself time to be creative and give yourself downtime.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ellen and Steve. When I started out as a freelancer, getting in, I was super excited to get in the business and get jobs that, I rarely said no to things, and I would go from show to show, sometimes theater to theater, and 2 in one day. But then as I got more experience and, built up some relationships with people, I started, was able to schedule my alone time more. Especially now with technology where you can do a lot of pre-queuing and pre-work at home with, augmented or, MA3D or whatever, visualizers. It has really helped me separate my home life from the theater. If I have a show coming up, I actually kind of plan out, I make checklists and I plan out how much I'm going to do each day. So, and that's a big thing. Preparation before you get to the theater is a big part of that too. Because if you wait until you get to the theater to do everything, you're going to be really stressed out, try and get everything done by the time tech starts. But if you do a little bit of homework and spend an hour a day, the last show I did was in Iowa, so I did a lot of my pre-queuing at home before I traveled out there. And the 3 weeks before my flight out, I said, all right, today I'm going to just queue pages 1 through 10, and then I'm done. And then I'm going to go take, relax, enjoy the day. Tomorrow I'll do pages 21 through 30 or whatever. It is, like Ellen said, it's all about not taking too many things, not being afraid to say no to something. If you have a week that you were looking forward to just decompress, it's okay to say no to do that. David, what do you think?
I agree with everybody here, although I didn't have a family with kids. So, but I do remember early in my career, I knew a lot of young artists who were doing that, and they were missing their kids and their wives and husbands very much. And I said to myself, I could never have a family in this career because I couldn't go through what they're going through. Maybe that's consciously why I didn't get married for so many years. I didn't get married until I was, 50 years old. That's when I got married the first time. And and then my life got real busy. And I was traveling all over the world then. It was nuts. I rarely saw my wife. We didn't have kids, and we didn't want kids. So, we didn't have to work. But if we had kids, I don't know how I would have handled it personally. So.
And you had to retire to get married the second time.
I had to retire to get married to Lori. And we have our only kids are 2 cats. Actually, she has 2 wonderful kids, but they're both in their 20s. So that being said, yeah, it's a big sacrifice. It's really hard. But again, listening to all the guests that we've had on this show, and we asked them the same question, they all have ways of doing it, and they're all it's a very interesting sociological sort of experiment. I think that we do, because some of them are kind of the same, but a lot of people were like, yeah, well, we figured out the tour schedule like this, and I fly home on Tuesday and I'm there until Thursday, and then I fly out again and I do this, and and they're talking whether you should take this tour or not take this tour. It's really interesting.
And expanding on what Steve said about, healthy lifestyle too, when I travel a lot, I make a point to go to the local grocery store to get food from the fridge in my hotel room or stuff that I could keep in the hotel room. So that way I'm not going out to the fast food joint 3 times a day and, having unhealthy meals. That way I can come home and have something decent.
Well, I think too we live in this kind of capitalist world in which everyone wants you to. Maybe everyone's a harsh thing to say. I meet so many people who say we got to start right now. We got to do it right now. We got to fit 8 hours into 6-hour day, and that's just bumpkus. When I started traveling with the Lumen Dance Company, I was stunned that we have a travel day, and then everybody has a full day off. Then we move into the theater. You know, when you think about flying across the Atlantic or the Pacific, having that day off. The first time I did a show in the Netherlands, they told me the load-in started at 10 a.m. I was freaking out over that, like, oh, if we don't start at 8, we can't get it done. Well, we started at 10. It was a relaxed day. The stagehands got everything done, and we were in fine shape. It is about being organized and being competent in what you do, as opposed to just running around screaming backstage. We've only got 3 hours left. What do we do now?
Heartbroken in Seattle writes, I have been working with this director for over 10 years, mostly in LORT B and C theaters. His career is taking off, and I heard from a mutual friend that this director recently accepted a show at a LORT A theater. I also learned that he has hired all new designers for this show. He has not contacted me with an explanation. I was hoping that our team would move up together, but it seems that he does not feel the same loyalty. I know that this occurs frequently in our profession, but wouldn't a phone call be too much to expect? Well, this sounds like something you get in a Dear Abby letter. And you know something? Of course it's a Dear Abby letter because it depends on how you look at what these relationships are. And when you build a relationship within a production team, they can go on for years and years and years, and then they can suddenly end for one reason or another. Who knows what it is? Maybe the director gets a show, and the director wants his team or her team, and the producer says, "No, we have committed to this person, this person, this person to do it." And the director, wants to take the show and should take the show, especially if the designers are competent. You can only go so far in demanding your designers. And if you're breaking in, if you're doing LORT B's and C's and you get a LORT A that could go to Broadway or who knows what's going to happen with that show, you're not going to want to miss that. So the right thing for this director to do would be contact her team and make sure that they understand what the situation is. That's happened to me, actually. And then like 2 or 3 shows later, they call me again and I'm back working with the director. So that's the professional way of handling this. But sometimes you start working with people who act in ways that really aren't kind and they're not befitting people who are friends. And let's be honest, this is a friendly career choice, because you're working with people very close. You're going out with drinks with them. You're hearing about all their personal issues, and you start bonding with your colleagues. You're basically spending weeks and weeks and weeks in a foreign country with them. So you're experiencing new things. That's the beauty of the theater to me. One of the wonderful things about the theater is that you get to make these relationships. But in this case, I think it's really poor form for this director not to call. Too heartbroken in Seattle, I wouldn't even bother. If this director's hasn't called you yet, and they probably won't call you, and you can't, just call them and say, "Hey, what's happening? Why didn't you call me?" I don't think that's the way to handle it. You just move on with your career, and you find new directors. What do you all think?
I agree. I mean, there's everything you said is true. I think for Heartbroken, you do need to consider that move to an A house is very different from a B or a C house. All of a sudden, budgets have changed. I'm not going to defend the director, but I can guarantee you in an A house where the budgets range quite the Mount Everest at times, the producer there says, "I'm going to hire David Jacques as your lighting designer because I know he can bring the show in. I know he can do the schedule. He's successful. That's just how it is. It is, at the end of the day, it is a money business too, particularly when you're getting into the larger budget shows. There was a producer who I heard speak once, and he was talking about how he hired designers. And someone said, oh, you could hire anyone you want. And he said, well, kind of. And they said, I've noticed you've never worked with XYZ Broadway designer. And he said, that person's one of the best designers on the planet, but he or she doesn't know the meaning of the word budget. So, you got to think about that a little bit too.
Yeah, although on the other hand, we have had guests who, at a very young age, have done a Broadway show or a Big Lord show because they worked with a director who moved up and they went with them, or they were assisting a designer who couldn't do the job and said, oh, well, here, maybe you can handle this one. So I guess it works in both directions, but
it depends on how powerful the director is.
Mm-hmm.
And it also depends on the producer. Now, you were talking about commercial theater, which is something that I stay away from intentionally. But, in the opera world, in the larger, live entertainment, and it's not Broadway, then usually the director has a lot of clout. They really do. But I know of some instances where designers, were hoping for their first Broadway show, and they just didn't get them because the producer just said, we don't want to take that chance. Or we want to bring like Jen Shriver on, who's going to probably be nominated for a Tony, and that's going to sell more tickets. It's all that screwed up commercial bullshit that drives me crazy.
Yeah, we know of an example. I won't name names, but in the concert world, if you're someone's lighting designer for 10, 20, 30 years, and they do a Broadway show, the producer's going to pull in the Tony Award-winning lighting designer, not the concert designer, because they know their way around a four-wall rental, they know their way around, Broadway. And then when they decide to do a HBO special of the performance, they call you in to do the television lighting.
Right. It's so screwed up because it's easy to solve that problem, and some shows have done this where they'll bring you in, but you would have an associate who knows their way around. Like when I did that show in New York, I brought in Nick Solium to be my associate,
right.
And Nick knows he's like one of the top associates on Broadway. And he's a former student of mine, too. So we had a great relationship. And, of course, he said yes, and it was wonderful. But this, that does happen as well.
I think that's a good solution, though, because then the designer's not disappointed or heartbroken, and they have the help they need.
I had the help I need. I didn't. That was one of the most pleasant experiences of my career because he knows everything. He knows the shops. He knows all that stuff. It's just fantastic. So I was very fortunate.
Well, also, if you think back on La Cage aux Folles, when they remade it as the Birdcage, I believe they certainly had a director of photography on that, but they brought in Ken Billington to light the club scenes. And no feathers were ruffled there. You get the best people you can get in each area, and they walk in and do it.
Well, that works in the other direction too. You could have the world's best cinematographer on a movie, and they bring in people like Jules Fisher or Mike Baldessari to light the theater scenes.
You are listening to Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers and Sister, and Light Talk is sponsored by
No More 10 out of 12s. A beginner's guide to lighting Hamlet. At some point in your career, you will light Hamlet. But how to start? Step 1. Start dark. Act 1. Is it dark enough? Act 2. Darker. Act 3. Darker but artistic. Act 4. Darker and sadder. Act 5. Dark enough that death itself needs a flashlight. The typical conversation between the LD and the director often starts with, lighting designer, so darkness. Director, yes. Lighting designer, how much darkness? Director, more. As the lighting designer of Hamlet, you must help the audience distinguish between artistic gloom and a power outage. Step 2, the ghost. The script says a ghost enters. As lighting designer, you have 3 options. Option 1, blue light and fog. Option B, more blue light and more fog. Option C, so much blue light and fog the audience thinks they're at a rock concert. Eventually, you will choose option C. Step 3, Hamlet's soliloquies. And baby, there's 7 of them. The director, the audience must understand his inner turmoil. Lighting designer, a special? Director, yes. Hamlet, to be or not to be. Audience, a single light. Important thoughts are being revealed. Step 4. Claudius is a moving target and the lighting must be carefully crafted. Act 1. Slightly suspicious. Act 2. Definitely suspicious. Act 3. Standing under a beam of light that practically shouts murderer. Act 4. Unraveling under the weight of guilt. Act 5. Full James Bond villain. Step 5. The play within the play. Director, how do we show this is a performance inside a performance? Lighting designer, different lighting. Director, brilliant. Lighting designer, I can change from amber to blue. Audience, oh, something deeply symbolic is happening. Step 6, Ophelia. The director says she's descending into tragedy. Lighting designer, soft light. Director, poetic light. Lighting designer, maybe flower gobos projected everywhere. Director, beautiful. Audience, she's either seeing things or sponsored by FTD. Step 7, the graveyard scene. Minimal requirements, a grave, a skull, existential despair. Director, moonlight. Lighting designer, how much moonlight? Director, enough to contemplate death. Step 8, the final duel. The final scene is basically fight lighting, death lighting, more death lighting, surprise death lighting. Director, everybody dies. Lighting designer, excellent. How many specials am I running? Stage manager, oh yeah. Final thoughts. The audience should leave saying, I couldn't always see what was happening, but it felt extremely Shakespearean. This has been a public service announcement from No More, 10 out of 12.
And now back to Light Talk in that fog of blue light.
Blue light and fog, you can never go wrong.
Oh, no.
Okay, I have a pretty extensive career in lighting design. I have never lit Hamlet.
Well, it's not too late.
Well, now you know how. Now you know how.
Okay, so Steve has the last question of the day.
Kelly in Tucson writes, where do you place your booms when lighting dance? How does placement affect your focus? Well, everything. Placement affects focus of every light in the rig. But if you're just looking for mechanics, then I'm going to place my booms no closer than 6 feet to the opening and no further than, say, 10 feet away. I'm going to place my downstage boom close to the main curtain so I can get a nice straight cut across the curtain line. And I'm going to take my upstage boom and do the exact same thing. I'm going to put it as close to the cyc as I can get it so I can get a nice straight cut back there. The real question, I think, is do you like light on the floor or do you like dancers kind of floating out there? So I think you have to make decisions about how you cut. And clearly I'm talking about a kicker here when I say how you cut something. For me, my placement of the boom, 6 feet or 10 feet off stage, gives me a little bit more latitude when I do that cut off the floor, because what I'm trying not to do is get a big shadow line so their feet are lit at center line, and as they walk left or right, the light starts creeping up their body and all of a sudden there's a cut at their knees. I'm trying to extend that light as far as I can down. David, you've done a boom in your day. How do you like to place your booms?
I do booms all the time. I love the sidelight, but I don't do dance. I'm usually doing it for musicals then there's dance and musicals, of course. But anyway, the placement will depend on what is going through those wings. It's that simple. Do you have platforms and scenery going through the wings? You have just furniture going through? The first thing I look at when I get the plans for the set is, okay, do I have wings? And then remember we talked last week with Jen, who said for the Lost Boys, they had walls. There were no wings, right? So you know exactly what you're not going to have. But in this case, most of the time you'll have some type of place to bury the light if you're doing a proscenium show, and maybe use the walls as, as effects, use them as shadows. But anyway, that's a whole different situation. So know what's going in and out. And I usually find that out because I talk to the director very early and say, okay, here's the set. What do you need clear? And then I also talk to the stage manager. And then sometimes if you want to place your boom just upstage of the leg and be able to open it up a bit, but cut off that far leg, or vice versa, and place it all the way upstage and cut off downstage, where you're going to include, whatever that next wing is. So you get an even coverage of light going down. Or ideally, they're going to be in the middle. But if there's stuff coming through, there are entrances and exits and scenery coming through there, you're going to have to choose downstage or upstage, because usually you only have 7 or 8 feet between each wing.
Now, the thing I learned at my first A house, it's like sitting in first class. You don't even know what's in first class until you sit up there in it, then you're amazed. I was working on a show, and we were talking about sidelight and the importance of sidelight. And I'm sitting there trying to scope this out and figure out how I can get this done. And the master electrician and the TD looked at me very kindly and said, you've only got 8 booms in the show. We can motorize them all, and we'll fly them in and out as you need.
Yeah. Well, that's for a large
yes.
budget.
That's what
fly them in and out.
That's what you learn at the A houses. And there's no problem that can't be solved.
Right. If you have the money.
Yeah, and the other end of the spectrum in New York City, and I suspect a lot of other places, a lot of dance takes place in small black box theater type places where there are no wings at all. And a lot of times you see light ladders literally on stage to handle the side light.
Well, that's like the Joyce. I mean, you got a full 3 feet of wing space on either side. So they're all tight.
Yeah, and it's also about what lens you use. Like, so when I do side lighting on booms, I like to try to usually stick to like a 36 degree. That way, because I like you want to make sure you can overlap the shutter cuts enough where you get a even wash of light without any dead zones, or you don't want the dancers to go dark randomly as they walk up or down stage.
All right. Well, Drew, thank you for being on the show today.
This was so awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
It was great.
It is great.
I already have my hotel booked for LDI.
Yay!
Just waiting on the flights to hopefully go down in price, but I'm not optimistic. But yeah, no, I'm very looking forward to it. Can't wait. Again, like I said, it's my favorite thing to look forward to every year. Not just to see Light Talk live, but just to see all the booths. And Ellen, you always do such a great job with the organization of it, and it's always such a blast to be there for the weekend.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And one thing you said, I want to just say this on the show about taking those classes at LDI. We talk about that a lot. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a better bargain.
Oh yeah,
for our education. And this is what I tell people now. So go to LDI the week before. Go and take those classes. You're going to learn more than you're going to learn in 2 years in grad school.
Yep.
So, from great professionals. And on the side, take some classes from Studio School of Design.
Yeah, they do a great job too.
Yeah.
Same thing. So I'm so glad that you did that, Drew. I think that was really wise.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids, featuring Drew Bielinski on piano, tell us that once again you've spent another Wednesday morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
hey, listeners of this pathetic gibberish. You haven't heard from me for a while. David's been keeping me pretty busy with our own Light Talk After Dark, if you know what I mean. But trust and believe, if you do decide to litigate, you will have to deal with me, Snoot from the Snoot Group, and I'm not any softer, so don't with me.
Light Talk, coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shores neighborhood of Long Beach, California, the tropical paradise of St. Bart's, the Mormon capital of Salt Lake City, and the Lone Star State.
Be sure to join us next week when we dive into more lighting shenanigans and serve up a fresh, piping hot casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
We will see you all next Wednesday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.